Good afternoon. Friday, February 19th, 2021 at 1:22 p.m. in Sarasota, Florida. Anybody that knows me, even just a little bit, knows I have a thing for the number 4. Without explaining why in this recording, suffice to say, 4 and 10 are sort of, you will always see me incorporate, or you don't be surprised if you see me incorporate 4, 10, and any combinations thereof in my work, because I very much believe in the energy of everything, including numbers. And for me, numbers have been a huge way that I have navigated, really, this dimension. Long before my awakening. So, in staying with the theme and the focus on 4, this is the 4th recording in a very distinct little, let's call it a mini-series. All 4 recordings go together. When I started, the very first one, it was purely in that moment. And I had already denied. It was a very similar feeling because it was one new male energy in my life that was inspiring me and almost calling me forward and pulling me forward, his energy. And there was simultaneously an old energy, male, in my world that I had decided to let back in. And it was the combination of how this was really affecting me in my now moment that prompted me to capture that very first recording. And then I've just sort of followed the flow. And it's been 6 days since the last one, mostly because I have to work, I work almost 40 hours a week for others on top of trying to keep my own work alive, which is not yet paying the bills, and it's never going to pay the bills if I can't really get it flowing, and maintain a house and take care of 2 cats, one that's, particularly unwell. I mean, his body, he needs a lot of care and attention and benefits from the fact that I'm home. They both do, actually. So I'm juggling quite a bit. But I also know that I'm sick and tired of not breaking through, and a very, very powerful revelation hit as part of the impetus to turn on the recorder for the first recording of this mini-series. And it's a huge topic in my world, and I already know enough women in my own network who have struggled with one or multiple aspects of what I know I'm going through, let alone if you extrapolate that out to the world. And right now, we are at the on stage. We are in the very beginning of the next big movement in humanity, if you will, the healing movement. We had civil rights, we had the women's movement, we had the environmental movement. Now it's time for the healing movement, which arguably should have been the first one had we had any consciousness, because it doesn't do any good to go out in the world and create if you're creating with wounded energy. Because all you're going to do in mass is create a mass world of wounded energy. And if you can't look in the mirror of the world's situation from all sorts of perspectives, long before this virus hit, if you can't look at that and feel like, how the fuck are we not doing better? Then that's A-okay, but you will not be drawn to my work. And it's totally okay. I don't need people to be drawn to my work. I'm just done messing around. I'm done being unclear because there's too much at stake in the physical dimension. Now, from my spiritual perspective, my purpose in the physical dimension at this time is to be the brightest light I can possibly be. So I just don't have time to fuck around in the world of fear. And that is the ultimate delineation right now. 2, good versus evil, love versus fear. If you got to choose sides, you're choosing between those. It's good versus evil, love versus fear. I am on the love side, and I am definitely on the good side. I am never seeking to hurt anyone, to manipulate anyone, to lie to anyone, to take advantage of anyone. Never, ever, ever. It's never been a part of this life for me. I'm being called by something enormous. I've been called my whole life, and I answered the call in an enormous way 8.5 years ago. And the journey I've taken and the things I have, quote unquote, achieved in that physical dimension since taking that very real leap of faith where I was essentially turning my life over to spirit, you better believe I have a story to share. And the story, it's part of what I came here to do. So what I keep not allowing myself to accept is that for my character, for my truth, not sharing the wisdom, the lessons, the experience, the knowledge, the information that I have, but perhaps most importantly, not sharing the love energy that I have to the extent that I have it. When you factor in, all I want to do is take this extremely powerful vessel and serve love out in the world. That should not be a hard thing. Certainly not in a world that supposedly has tons of faith and belief in God. It's enough is enough time. It's get real time. So I'm done messing around. I am a very strong woman who hasn't yet really fully created the opportunity for herself to, on the most selfish level, I just want to do work that I truly want to be doing. And mostly I want to be where I am as effective and efficient as possible. If I'm going to be the physical domain, that is like one of the ways that it's one of the rules sort of our 3D earth that I love striving, utilizing my natural tendency as a spiritual being to constantly expand. I love playing with that by hyper-focusing it in the physical dimension with the language of setting a goal and going after to achieve it. I've made that an extremely spiritual experience right now. And I basically just need a playing field. And I play a big game. So I'm about to unveil where I'm basically going to reveal a number of projects, a number of ideas, some that have a stronger foundation than others, but all of them, I can speak exactly to what each one would quote unquote need from others in order to take off, to break through. Keeping in mind that every single project of mine, every aspect of my work has at its core the intention to positively affect as many people for as long as possible going forward. And what that means is I'm not here to do all the work anymore. I'm here to guide you to help yourself. But that's a really, really, really big shift from Allison's energy of the past. So even though I literally dream of coming together and working at my most potent power, best version of myself with people from my past. Certain people, it's not going to be a problem, but for the majority, definitely over 50%, I did all the work. I did all the work in relationships. I never shut up. I wasn't a good friend. I mean, I was to some degree, but I didn't stay anywhere long enough. I just wasn't present and aware of my energy at the magnitude that it was clearly coming out of me. I really, and I considered myself to be pretty self-aware and pretty emotionally mature, but when it came down to it, boy, I had a lot to learn about my overall energy field, and I had a whole hell of a lot to learn about how my unique mechanism, my unique machine, my unique energy vessel operated. And I was on a mission to make it the most efficient operating machine that I could. And my hypothesis is the more that we all do that first and then begin to come together to work on projects of varying levels of seriousness, if you will. There may very well be a time here in the near future where we might be having to come together to help provide basic needs for our brothers and sisters. Now, I would love and want and will have a balance of keeping this light and fun as well. That's where the music comes in. That's where the juggling and the dancing and the singing comes in. And the fitness. And I have to keep it light and fun to balance out, because light and fun is really how it is. And the more we can remember that, the more those of us who don't struggle in the physical dimension can realize how fucking spoiled we are and how much we have, and try to help raise that bare minimum for everybody. And understand that most of the reason it hasn't been risen yet is not because people are lazy or stupid. It's because the systems have not taught them how to fish. They've just been handing out all the fish. So no one knows how to be self-reliant. No one knows how to be independent. No one knows how to work through shit on their own. Our bar for humanity is about as low as a lizard. And I'm not settling for the lowest common denominator. I'm about building a world of the greatest common multiple. And it doesn't make sense to me to have multi-billionaires running around on this planet while we still have a huge fraction of the world's population that doesn't have clean water. Fucking no sense. That doesn't make sense. That's not acceptable for me. I don't want to be on a grand human team that accepts that as okay. Because hello, part of being on a grand human team means you have to give a shit about your teammates. If a fucking fourth of my teammates, and I actually think the number's higher than that of the global population that doesn't have clean water, are struggling just to get clean food and water into their bodies, basic needs for our vessels, I'm sorry. You have at your world where you don't see this as a problem. I swear to God, it doesn't bother me. Go ahead, go in your world. I know how this works. Frequencies and vibrations attract one another. That is a distinctly different frequency. It's not better or worse. It's just one I don't want to be a part of. I'm not settling for fear any longer. I'm settling for love and only love. And I've spent my life, the majority of my life was in fear. And since my awakening, and since the very hard work of transmuting all of that fear within me, and understanding how I projected it out and at this nuanced level, I can't hide behind that sort of skill set and gifts, and not when I know I can put that to use in the physical domain in ways that the only person that's going to manage me well is me. And it's unbelievable to what degree you don't have space in this world to actually show up at a table representing yourself and there's just no expectation that people, most people that run businesses have accountants, have lawyers. They've never done everything. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying that I'm not common. I'm not common right now. I'm not common. And I just need some playing space and really what I do need the participation, minimal participation from many others though, because I'm not looking to have, this is an overall intention to help shine the light in a gentle way. Because if you're lost on a path in the dark and all of a sudden you see a light shining on that path, showing you the way, you won't, you're going to feel like, it was a miracle. You're not going to be upset about that. You're going to be like praising whatever you praise for a long time, possibly, in a scenario, if you're in the middle of the woods and it's dark and you lost the trail, that's a big find. That's a big miracle. But if, on the other hand, somebody's in the dark and they're choosing to be in the dark, there's a reason they want they're trying to sleep. They have a migraine. They're getting it on with their significant other. I don't know. They're choosing to be in the dark. And you come in and shine any sort of light, whether it's subtle or, worst of all, imagine going into a room that you think is empty and dark and you flip on the light switch when there's people in there who wanted to be in there dark. So they're not going to have the same sentiments. Yet, really, you're the same light. But the situation, the context, the circumstances matters. The context matters. And every single unique, human being, even though we're all connected ultimately to this one love energy, even the dark shit coming out is ultimately part of the one love. Down here, we are unique expressions, but we have to consciously make choices. We're making choices consciously, and that's part of the awakening, is really remembering and recognizing, seriously, folks, how powerful we are. We are all superheroes. We truly are. Our imaginations are truly the only limitations. Except in the physical domain, there have been very, very, very real manipulations and very real efforts to hold down humanity in exponentially out of this universe ways. Consciously, and having more awareness, and then choosing to use that awareness to manipulate and control without the informed consent. Or whatever their definition of as informed consent was, definitely sleazy and manipulative. Very small percentage of energy has been controlling the earth for a very, very long time. And again, if you can't look and realize that there's a pretty fucking big shift going on, and it's a pretty clear delineation between, the sides, if you will. And trust me, it's more than red and blue in the States. It's more than about if you fucking have a mask on or not. It's more than about the fucking vaccine. Like, folks, seriously, anybody that's actually been in the trenches of what most of the world faces, whether it's financially, economically, educationally, unless you've met people or been to some of these places and realized, you don't recognize to what extent you live in a little bubble. And for those whose bubbles have been burst in one way or another, they just have more awareness. And it's a beautiful shift, but it is time to choose. It is time to choose. And the hardest part that I've had, now I can say so clearly, is allowing myself to be my full vessel means it's having not yet had, it's just, I use words very lightly, so I don't want to say scary, but it kind of is, because I'm not doing this to, I kind of gets back to the root of, I can't even put into words how painful it is for me to be going through the specifics of this masculine energy release, this pattern that I'm releasing right now, and how grateful I am. Oh my God, so grateful for its revelation in this way. But what it has meant is I let somebody back into my world, because I never lose hope that somebody can change, ever. People can't change if they don't have the space being held for them to be able to be seen that way. If you've got somebody in your life who's really trying to change, and you're not honestly able to see that ability for them, but you're making them believe that you are holding that space, it's one of the most, you gotta give somebody room to be able to change. So even though I knew the statistical likelihood was slim to none, I also knew that after 2 years, if I didn't finally agree to maybe see him and go for a walk, I wouldn't be able to have a read on the energy. And so I opened myself back up to letting a very, 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 somebody that hurt me deeply, and somebody that I knew at that point, and clearly still at this point, really has no clue. He doesn't understand. He hasn't been able to receive and feel and hear how deep the pain was. And a lot of it was because it was bringing up all of that pain of longing. All I want is an honest to God, loving relationship. In my immediate family. That's all. And making peace with and letting that go. It's the only reason it doesn't hold me back anymore to hardly any extent, except for like times like this when it's brought to the surface, is because I have the physical distance from it. I have tried and tried and tried, and for 35 years I allowed that pain of, it's like, I don't get it. Like, I just want to feel the love in my family. I know the love's there, but I'm not feeling it. It's not, and it's because in most cases, they're too afraid to let it in. And I didn't understand this to the degree that I do now. And it's so fascinating because I can't give up. I'm not wired to give up. So I'm constantly going back and getting burned by the fire. But it's not the folks burning me, it's not their fault any longer. It's never been, well, when you try to communicate it to somebody, and that's the part that's been really hard the past 8 years. I didn't know to even communicate. I didn't understand this until my spiritual awakening. And that has been a huge transmutation that had to happen. A transmuting of that deep pain as it pertained to my closest relationships. I can't imagine, it's a hard story to be okay with. It's hard that I don't have that at all with the men in my family, at all. And not for lack of trying. And even with my mom, the fear energy within her is still so massive. And again, it is with most of the world. Because that's what the world has conditioned us. It's fear. And I just can't go down into that realm anymore. I have to be the light that I came here to be in the realm of love. And for my individual human character story, the specific dynamic of really close men, okay? And in this case, is part of the reason there is so much pain is because there's not balance in the masculine and feminine energy within these men. But it's just, just most people that I've come across many women. I mean, almost all women have some sort of damaging relationship like this with some close male from their past. But, most of them have either a good relationship with their dad or a good relationship with at least one of their brothers or a brother, or have a great male best friend, an uncle, even a grandfather. It's just definitely been something that I desire. It's a want. I can say from a certain perspective, sure, it's a need, but not like really only because I truly believe that a big part of why my work hasn't come fully together is because my energy hasn't come fully together. Because I've wanted to believe that I could get that reflection from a close male in my life and not have to provide it for myself. It's like I have this pattern of these history of the relationships where I'm doing it all. Running around, the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, the mental aspect, the spiritual. I'm just not even, there's no there's no time, there's no opportunity from my past relationships where I even allowed people to indicate where they were or were not, how they saw me or how they didn't. And it was just always out of the panic and the wounds between my masculine and feminine. And that played out in my immediate family relationships, and it continues to this day. So, of course, my mom remarried my father twice. Why do I keep letting this other guy, giving him a chance? Clearly, that's even in my DNA, if you will. But this time is different. I recognize it now in a way, it's very different. And then having the new energy, also trip me up. What I'm realizing is that through just these 4 recordings, I've talked myself away from the one that I needed to be away from. And I've talked myself way down, slowing the roll with the other one, even though everything in my gut tells me that other one is definitely safe. Definitely safe. That's what my gut tells me. But the fact is, I haven't yet experienced that in the physical since my awakening in my full power, because I'm not interested in befriending. I'm here to work. So I will be close, and ask anybody that's ever worked with me. My work relationships are very close. But my playtime and my downtime and my time away from a formal project, that is a very small group of people that will be privy to share that time with me. And I can guarantee you will not be sharing in my downtime unless you are also working. It's just, like I said, I'm looking for my soul family. We came here to work. That doesn't mean there's not rest time and downtime and playtime. For sure, it's about being balanced. And what being balanced does is allows you to be at this unprecedented level of efficiency when you do go out into the 3D world or this more mainstream world and try to accomplish something, because there's just so much fucking bullshit and middle person and lies and deceit. That stuff takes energy. That's huge blockages. It's getting through that blockages and going right to the point. Because, like I said, there's too much at stake now, least of which my own well-being, because I know there's a quote-unquote audience of energy. There are others that need to feel and hear this frequency so that they can continue to evolve on their journey. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be super close with all these people, but there's an energy coming through me, a unique energy. It's the energy of love is one huge, note. But the energy of love looks and feels and plays out and sounds differently through each instrument. And ultimately, we are all a unique instrument of ourselves, of our energy. A C note played through a clarinet sounds different than a C note played through a trumpet. Sounds different than a C played on the piano, or through a saxophone, or a flute, or a bassoon, or an oboe, or a French horn. Trombones. There are a lot of instruments. And we're all being called to harmonize around love and to balance and to heal. And another oversimplification, so good versus evil, love versus fear, masculine versus feminine. I'm not interested to continuing to see us as separate and to put us into these groups. But in order to heal, we have to be able to have honest conversations about the very different lived experiences that happen with men and women. We'll have plenty of common ones as well, but the healing cannot take place until we all have the safe space to express how we've been hurt. so that we can all mature above the emotions, but have compassion for one another and understand that you never get to debate somebody else's feelings, ever. If they're feeling that way, that's what they're feeling. And you need to grow. We all need to be mature enough to not take it personally. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt or burn if somebody gets triggered adversely. Can you imagine a world where we can just be mature adults and say, whoa, man, let it die down if you need to. Come back to it in a couple days and say, wow, when this happened, it really triggered me. Do you mind if we talk through it a little bit? Rather than taking personal offense and then, passive aggressively reacting and all this unstated energy that's present. It behooves us to be direct, honest, transparent, genuine, authentic. And I promise you, the more we practice that, it will get easier. And we'll start breezing through this emotional shit. But just to try to pretend it's not there, it's all those illusions that all those distractions, all those blockades you've put up, they're coming down. It's there. And it doesn't make any sense to try to fix anything until we come at it from a completely different angle. It's time to go within. Listening to my story will help you go within. And there's a layer of sort of protection because I'll be sharing the lessons through my unique character, which will include some fuck-ups, right? Like letting my ex back into my world, knowing that the chance was almost nil that he could change, knowing he's my kryptonite, like kryptonite he is to me. And yet, I'm drawn to him. And I don't want to be. Because he's nowhere near what we agreed to come together as. We agreed to come together at a much higher level and certainly one where we're harmonizing. We're not harmonizing at all. And to let him go, all the times I've let him go over the past years, it doesn't get easier. And I can't even express any of this to him because I don't believe that he has the ability to hear it because he never once demonstrated that he did when I tried over and over and over again for years. When I basically tried to express when he was doing or saying something that it made me feel a certain way. And trying to give him a chance to address it because basically I'm not blaming him for my feelings. I'm just here to say, if I keep feeling this way, I'm not going to choose to be around you. I don't like how I feel around him at all. And I understand what I'm feeling now more than ever. And I never could explain, again, not to any man close to me when there's been an issue, which is to say when Allison isn't stroking egos and pepping everybody else out when there's an issue. And this has been hard for me because I didn't even try to give myself voice until the past 8 years. And not a single time has it gone well yet, where I've actually tried to tell somebody close, a relationship that I want to keep in my life, that they've hurt me. In every single instance, the relationship no longer exists. And I just do not have the capacity within me after hanging out and giving them about a good 4 weeks. Saw him a handful of times, 4 to 6 over a 6-week period, saw him a handful of times. And in all the ways that hurt me the worst, which was really because I'm doing all the work. In all the realms. And I can't believe it. I am not settling to have nobody that can fill my emotional needs and spiritual needs. I'm not here to be, everybody else for them to suck all of mine out and not give anything back. And that's new for me. So it would help to have an environment where the sharing of the rawness of this, because I think it's the most pure when it's raw. I think we run from this. It's why we're all still running around as wounded as we are. And I just am being called to try to share this particular story, like I said, on the Patreon page, where people will have to pay a little bit and just share firsthand how one person has consciously been stepping through the release of one of her one of her deepest, most damaging patterns, and really it was one of emotional abuse. Emotional abuse and really mental abuse as well, because the men in my life that have been close have been very, very, very smart, and therefore have the capability to be very manipulative. And it's worse when they can't see it. And they, of course, when you point it out, if that's happening and you're feeling that, they ain't going to respond well to when you point that out to them. And then when they come into their wounded ego and the worst of that and direct it at you, these are all things that I now, I had to really understand it and allow it close. And it just sort of happened over the living of my life the past 8 years. And I am very much certain of the fact that I am at the crossroads of, am I going to break this pattern for real this time? Or am I thinking I'm going down the different path, which I'm intending to do, but really I'm going down the same path. I don't want to go down the same path. And I would love to have this raw, pure story of self-love more than anything else. Be able to be helpful and valuable to even just one other woman. And if it had the potential to help many, I can't ignore what that would mean for the world, which is why I have to share it and put myself on the line by sharing something really so intimate and soul-bearing. So there it is. That's the end of this first little mini-series. And I think I will be using this mini-series to launch my Patreon no later than March 1st, 2021. Thank you if you listened. Have a wonderful day.